Thompson here with a highly touted crew of people for another one of our Ask the Champ series, interview series that we're doing with some of the all-time greats in table tennis, and we've got one today, do we ever? Jean-Michel Saive, who's in Belgium. And Jean-Michel, I want to first of all welcome you to our Ask the Champ interview series.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really pleased to join the chat, and hope we will have some fun today.
Absolutely. You are one of the all-time greats, no question about it. 7-time Olympian, former European champion, 2-time US Open champion as well. A lot of titles under your belt, but I think the one thing that stands out for me, Jean-Michel, in watching your play is the amount of fun that you have playing table tennis. I know you're retired now, but looking back at your career, it looks like you just had a great time as a professional table tennis player.
Yes, it's right. Okay, of course, in the end of my career, it was probably the kind of image that I show, because I had a lot of fun, and you need to have it to play so long, otherwise better to stop. But this is because I love my sport that I continue to play so long. Of course, in my best days in the 90s, it was a different type of player. I was much more a fighter, and I never give up. But in the end, I try to make it a little bit also for the spectators, and to give some fun to the people who were in the hall. Yeah.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to look at that one table tennis match they called the funniest table tennis match in history. And the one thing you had down for sure in that one was the lob. The opponent kept slamming the ball again and again, and you just kept putting it back on the table again and again. The fans obviously loved it.
Yeah, that match was really amazing. This was in, let's say, invitational tournament in Taiwan. And yeah, In fact, I could qualify for the semi-final when I played Chuang, because we both beat Krijan and we both lost to Mizutani. So that I still had a chance to reach the semi. But after the end of the second game, okay, I was down like 9-2 or 9-3. So I said, okay, I will play some high balls for the spectator. And then the match just turned, and then it was funny to see the faces of the umpires who didn't want to enjoy the fun, but in the end they did. And I don't know, still I watched some days ago now this video, it's over 30 million now, so it's views, so it's just crazy how it went, and it's already like 6 years ago. So it's yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah, we should post it here on the chat so that people can see that matches. Really does look like you're having a lot of fun, and it seemed like that was just consistent with your personality. As you said, that was later in your career, but sportsmanship has been a part of your career really since the beginning. I think that in 1989 you actually received an award from UNESCO for your sportsmanship, and I think that if you did look at a continuing thread throughout your time in table tennis, that was certainly an outstanding feature, is that you were considered one of the great personalities and one of the great sportsmen in table tennis.
Thanks a lot. Of course, I'm very proud of this prize. I know when you're a sportsman, of course, you try always to win, but the best is at the end of the tournament, of the match, or the competition, to look yourself in the mirror if it was in the good way or not. So I always try to do it in the best way. Of course, I was a big fighter. I never give up, but when one point was not my point, I give to my opponent, which was normal. But if I felt that it was my point, I will also fight for my point. But I mean, this is, I just found it normal. And in the end of the day, I think this is the best way.
Mark Thompson here with Jean-Michel Saive, and we've got Sean O'Neill with us, our high performance director. He's going to take over the questioning in just a moment. I've just got really one more. We talk about you're a 7-time Olympian, and it kind of in conjunction with this theme of sportsmanship in 2008, I think it was, the ITTF had determined that the top 20 players in the world would automatically qualify for the Olympics that year. And I think that you were tied with your person at that time for the 20th position. And of course, 2 of you had been longtime competitors. Both of you had already competed, I think by that time, at least in 5 Olympics. Both of you wanted to go. Both of you were tied for 20th. And I think the ITTF wanted you guys to play it off. And essentially you said, no, we're not going to play it off. We're going to make you make a decision. And I think that they had to go back and recalculate the world rankings at that point. They found that Jorg was actually 20th. You were 21st, but you did end up getting in. But I thought that was an interesting display of sportsmanship between two of the all-time greats to get into the 2008 Olympics.
Yeah, of course, it's okay, I don't want to explain all the story because it was really crazy, because we knew in November, both of us, that we were 19 and it was only one competition left, and finally Yangtze passed us, so we were 20, both of us. So Jürgen and me, we both felt that we should be qualified, and still they had like 44 or 43 more places left to qualify in the next tournaments, and in the European qualification and world qualification and so on. So okay, I will make the story short. In the end, ITTF, they published several ranking. I had all the ranking, and then they went back, they put back the decimal. But finally, okay, I tried to go to CAS, then CAS said, okay, you cannot go to CAS, you have to qualify on the table. So I always say, and finally I finished third in the world qualification in the last tournament. So I always said I participated 7 times in the Olympic Games and I qualified 8 times.
That's great. The old decimal point. Whenever I come up with that decimal point, I'm like, where'd you come up with that one? But with that, I'll turn it over to Sean O'Neill with Jean-Michel Saive.
Great to see you, Jean-Mi. And first off, I see we've had a couple messenger chats. Tell me exactly what happened to your left hand or left wrist when you were biking. All I saw was the result, but what actually happened there?
Well, I went for a long ride alone, and then suddenly I had to pass a red, let's say some different red lights, and suddenly I follow a young biker who just stopped in between suddenly. So I was just beside him, and then I had no time to stop. I just touched him, not so hard, but no time to put out the feet from the bike, and then I just fall down on the pavement, and that's just in the angle, and then it was directly broken. And then 3-4 days later, I had to have an operation. This is already like nearly 3 weeks ago now, so I still need to be patient. But I'm biking at home, so of course not in the street because I can only use my right arm, but hand. But okay, it's okay.
Yeah, I had the exact same thing happen to me with my daughter, and my problem also was getting my feet, because I have the biking shoes. The clips couldn't get out when a car was passing in front of me. So I just took a dive. And did they end up putting any type of metal in your wrist to stabilize it for the operation?
Yeah, they did it. So they put some metal, and then actually I will go to see the doctor tomorrow, so he will tell me more, and hopefully I stayed home, of course, the last 2-3 weeks. So I hope the situation will be better tomorrow.
Well, we wish you the best of luck and for a speedy recovery. And as Mark mentioned, 2-time US Open champion, and one of the thrills that I get with helping out with the Ask a Champ series is to kind of go back into my career and get to see the great players. And looking at the 1989 US Open in Miami, when you beat Wei Jiguang from China, how important was that victory to propel your career internationally?
Honestly, this was my biggest win at that time. I played well in the World Championships '89 in Dortmund. Belgium played well. We beat Germany 5-2. We lost Hungary 5-3. And it was funny because our last match in the group was against China. And in the same time, Germany had to beat Hungary to qualify. And it was in Germany. So they won 5-1 quite easily to Hungary, but then we had to lose against China that Germany could go through the quarterfinal. And then it was funny that the German spectator, they went behind our table and starting to clap for the Chinese against us, because my brother, who was only 17 that year, he won 2 matches against Teng Yi and Zhang Jialiang. So we were 2-2 against China when Germany had already won against Hungary. So they were like afraid that if we would have won against China, then we would have been first of the group and then qualified. So I played good in the team. I lost in the first round against Digny. So I went up, I was 14 the world ranking, and then I went on this good confident to US Open in Miami. And in Miami, we won the team event with Cabrera against China. And then, if I remember well, I think I beat Wallner in quarterfinal and Gatien in semi, and then Wei Qingquang, and then finally Izeki for Japan afterwards in final. And this was my first big victory. Because of that, they gave me a wild card to play the World Cup in Kenya in September, 2 months after, and I reached the semi-final there. So this was the beginning, let's say, of my first big step, and then I reached afterwards the top 20 of the world ranking, and then, okay, it was another story then afterwards.
Now, it was interesting because Gatien also won a US Open, Primorac won a US Open, Appelgren won a US Open. It seemed like, and Waldner also won one in the 1991 that you played in Baltimore. It seemed like all the great European stars won the US Open. And I don't know if it was simply because it was during the off time of the year where the more serious players wanted to do well when their opponent or their teammates and opponents were maybe taking a little bit of a vacation. But I know that you had a huge following at the US Open in the many times that you came. And you mentioned your brother, Philip. What is it like having a brother not just play the sport, but also on the national team?
A lot of advantage and some disadvantage. A lot of advantage because okay, we started to play together, and then to practice it's easy because you have a partner not far away, of course. And then when you are playing together in the national team, it's fantastic that you can share this with the same blood and with your own brother. On the other hand, you also spend much more energy because when it's your brother playing and not just a friend or a colleague, your heart is like, you spend much more energy and hoping that he's winning, and you are sweating for him when he's playing as well. And also on individual competition, when he's playing next table, when you pick up your ball, of course you look the board to look how much it is on his table. So it's not always easy. Also, when you are fighting to be the national champion, I think I played maybe 10 times against my brother in the final. So for our parents, it was not so easy. I mean, they were happy when we both reached the final, and then afterwards, they couldn't show to him too much that they were happy, and they couldn't show to me that they were maybe, let's say, disappointed, or they felt sorry for my brother. So, but it was a fantastic journey for both of us. I mean, we won the European League twice. We were vice world champion against China in 2001. So it's just amazing that we could reach that level, and we went 3 times together in the Olympics as well. So. Yeah, just great.
Did you run into any situations where maybe one of you was winning more in practice and the other one wouldn't want to play because they were angry, which then would affect the better players' training?
I think I lost, I don't know how many times we played, and I always believe, Philip and me, we always believe that I lost only 3 times, but now with this lockdown situation, we had so much tapes, VHS tape at home, and that he watched, and we find out that he beat me 1 more time. But in the practice, indeed, he won more. Okay, it was never easy for me because he's my little brother. So for him, he has nothing to lose against the big brother, and for me, I have to win, or I must win against my little brother. So I have to say that not so often in the real match, but more in the practice, there were sometimes fights between the 2 of us.
Well, I know we have Danny Seemiller on this webcast also, and I'm sure he's going to have a couple of questions, but I'm guessing he had a very similar experience, not only with one younger brother that played, but actually 2 other younger brothers that played for a while. So Danny, you're going to have to get your question ready. My next one is looking at the 1998 US Open, which was in Houston. It was the second one that you won. I'm going to do a little bit of a screen share, and hopefully this will work. And maybe you can imagine this point one more time. Danny was commentating at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this is down match point for the fourth time.
Match point number 5 for Legout.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's just this ball is just crazy. I don't know how I survived to win this ball. I mean, just never give up. Honestly, I have to say, when I do conferences in companies, I use always this point, because to show that I never give up, and I explain that I'm down and this is his 5th ball, match ball, and then finally I will win the 4 sets, and then win the game, and to win my 2nd title in US Open. But this was unbelievable. The crowd went just crazy after that ball, and I think it was hard for Legout afterwards. We didn't speak for a long time, but I think he remembered this, and I of course remember this. For him, it's tough to lose.
No, it's kind of like getting dunked on by Michael Jordan. When it makes the highlight reel, you never feel good about it. But clearly, I think that point sums up your career. I know in many interviews you've talked about being comfortable getting down in the mud and fighting like a pig for every single point. And that's a skill that I always try to encourage any of my students, whether they be juniors or adults that just want to win a trophy, is like, if you want to watch a world-class player, I go back to the greats, and you're the one that I point to for that skill, because it just seemed like regardless of the score, regardless of whether you're lobbing, the funniest match of all time is the lighter side of your personality. But I always viewed you as somebody who just would never give an inch, regardless of the score. And you could always count on, when they had game point or match point, the match was far from over.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, indeed. This, as you said, I never give up. And when you win 1 point, of course, this is really on match ball. But when you win 1 big point like this, and I was really, let's say, an attack player, not a defender in the end of my career, because of many rules and because I was a little bit slower than before. But when you win that kind of point, this is not 1 point. This is much more mentally for yourself, and mentally it's much worse for your opponent. So this is a double or triple point, or even more. So you need to fight really hard to win those one, because they count a lot. Yeah.
Well, and I think also, just from a psychological standpoint, if your opponent realize you won't give up on that type of point, there's no free points coming. I mean, they're going to have to work twice as hard, and often they might overplay the ball because they realize, well, I'm not going to get a free one because this guy is going to die till the very end.
Yeah, exactly. And then they again, a lot of tension, the harm also, a little bit afraid, because it seems to be easy, but it's not so easy to win that point. And when they start to lose one, maybe after, if they lose another one, then they really go down in confidence. So, and for myself, it was really important. And then suddenly with this big point, you get also the crowd behind, because they like it. So, it was not, let's say, on purpose to do it, because it was just to fight for 1 point. But in the end, it creates an atmosphere, and it helps me many times in many, many matches.
The next question I have before I throw it over to Danny is, you've had 2 very major coaches, I think, Stenzel and Wong. Can you talk about how each of them helped you in your career, and kind of the personality of a coach that you enjoyed that allowed you to play your very best?
Okay, 2 totally different type of coaches. I mean, Milan Stenzel was coming from ex-Yugoslavia. He's Croatian, and he was really, really hard. I have to say, really, really hard. And we learned really the basic of table tennis, and the discipline, and to be on time, and to fight. And I think we have to be thankful to him. Our generation, we learned to be, let's say, after he left, be independent. I mean, and independent. We could practice alone after because he really teach us, and we had this discipline and the basic of the game. So we had the chance that he arrived, and when I was a teenager, I was already European champion cadet, but he stayed there for 5 years. So when he left, I was number 14 the world ranking. So from cadets to 14 the world ranking, it was already a huge step. And then we stayed for 6, 7, 8 months without any coach. And then Belgium picked up Mr. Wong. And then I would say that Mr. Wong arrived to finalize, I would say, the basic with the small details in the game, with maybe a better service, to understand how to read the spin in the ball, to believe that you can win against the Chinese because they are human beings also, and it's not that because they were winning everything that time that they were untouchable. Of course, in the meantime, Wallner showed us in '87 in New Delhi after reaching the final that it was possible to win against the Chinese, because in the 80s they were as strong or maybe even stronger than they are today. Yeah, step by step, I believe, and we finalized some small details in the game on the strong basic from Stencil. Mr. Wong was more, let's say, cool and relaxed, and I was also older, so I think it was in the right order. A strong and hard trainer when I was teenager, and when I was adult with Mr. Wong, it was a perfect follow-up from what Milan did earlier, and then I stayed with Mr. Wong 20 years. And I would not also forget Dubravko Skoric, who was our coach in Villette Charleroi from 93 to 2008 before he went to Oxenhausen. And for him, it was not so easy because he had Primorac and me in the team, and Cabrera, and then Samsonov, and then Smirnov and Sheila. So he has to handle with a strong personality it is, but we were very successful because we played 13 Champions League final and we won 7 of them. So, and he stayed the coach for so long time. So, it's not so easy with strong characters.
Absolutely. Danny, would you like to jump in and ask a question or two?
Sure. I'm not sure my mic is working real well. Can you hear me?
Yep, no problem.
Yes, I can hear you. Hi.
Hello, welcome, Jean-Michel.
Thank you, Danny.
How does it feel to play the greatest match point of all time? I don't think anyone will ever do better than that.
Which one are you talking about? Which one?
The U.S. Open one against Legoux. It's the greatest match point probably ever.
This is just unbelievable, this ball. I mean, in this ball, in this momentum, in his 5th match ball, it's just crazy. I think still today he cannot believe how he lost the match at that point. And also me, when I'm nearly outside the arena or outside the barriers, and still I didn't want to give up, and I wanted to win one more time.
Just amazing. My first question is, your forehand loop had so much spin on it that no one could really handle it. Was there anyone that could go loop to loop with you and beat you?
Oh yeah, the Swedish, they were strong. Zoki was Primorac is very powerful. So of course I had the opportunity to play with him 10 years in the same club. So on the practice, I have to say loop to loop, Zoki was I would say 51-49 for him.
It always seemed like you had a little more spin, though. Players had so much trouble, even the Chinese.
I think honestly that Zoki was more powerful than me, but indeed maybe my spin was more spinny. But I think my best stroke was on the half-long ball. I was really good to start and heavy topspin on the really half-long ball, which disturbed a lot. For example, Wallner, when he was serving half-long service, and I was maybe one of the best outside Swedish, and Jörgen Persson, who could receive correctly his service.
Which one of these 4 moments in your career meant the most? First one, making the final of the Worlds in 1993. Second one, winning the Europeans, defeating Waldner in '94. The third one, defeating Jurgen Persson to advance Belgium to the men's team final at the Tokyo Worlds with your brother. Or number 4, becoming number 1 in the world. So which one do you make? I hate to put you on the spot, but which one meant the most and why?
I always answer the same because it's 4 great moments. But number one in the world. Number 1 in the world because the journey was long, difficult, and I have to say I lost many finals before. I lost the Europeans against Roscoff in '92, Stuttgart European Championships. Then I lost Gatien 1 year later in the final of the World Championships. And then when I reached the final of the European top 12, and Waldner was at that time number 1, I was number 2. I knew before the final that I could become number 1 in the world if I was the winner of the top 12. So when I beat him 21-18 in the last game, this is the only time in my career when I couldn't find my breath after the match in the dressing room. And I was one moment really afraid because I was, the emotion was so big. So I always pick up that moment, even if European Championships is bigger, and especially when, winning the European Championships when in the final, I was seeded number 1 in the world and Waldner number 2. And even everybody said, okay, Saive is number 1, but normally the real number 1 is Waldner. So that time shows that I was really leading the table tennis world for 15 months that year. But the other 2 moments are also fantastic. '93 World Championships, because again, my journey was crazy. I beat Gruba in the last 16. And then for the first time after maybe 12 defeats in a row, I beat Ma Wenge, who was Chinese number 1 in the quarterfinal, 3-2, and beating Waldner in the semifinal 3-0 in Sweden when he was the current Olympic champion. So, of course, 2001, it's another momentum because this is in team with my brother, with Bratanov, with the colleagues, and it was totally unexpected for Belgium to reach the final, but number 1 in the world, it's for a small Belgian guy, it's incredible.
Sure. Awesome. I'm going to make it a little bit harder. One more question.
Okay.
If you could go back and change one thing, I'm going to give you 2 things. You have to pick either A or B. You hold on to your late lead in the 5th game against Gatien and become the world champion. Or B, Kim Taek-soo scores one of those 7 match points and Belgium plays Korea in the final and you guys win the world title with your brother.
A. Without any hesitation, A, because I saw few times the final and I was really leading in the first set, 9-2. And then I lost 19 and Gatien played 2 crazy balls, 19-all in the first set to win that one. And I should be up and he should try to follow me in the final, but it was opposite. And then I missed this high ball when it was 15-14, when the ball passed through the light. And then I missed for 1 second or the ball and I smashed like 3 meters out. So I would choose this. And of course, okay, Kim Taek-soo, indeed, and we would have more chance. But not so many people remember, but in the final against China, I played the first match with Malin, and I was leading in the last game 15-11 or 15-12. And Malin was totally like out of order. And then Tsai Zenhua, he took the timeout. So unfortunately in the right time, but he took it, and then Malin came back. He served too long, and then I could start, and he went back and fishing, and then he made a hedge ball, and then he went back to confident, and finally he won that game. And afterwards, Philippe lost 2 times 19 with Liu Gozheng, and Bratanov 2 times 18 with Kong. But you would never know if I would have won this first match with Malin and I was playing really good with Liu Gozheng, maybe would have been even more crazy than to beat Korea in the final. But okay, I lost.
Were you watching the Korean match after you had beaten Sweden? You beat Persson, and then were you guys watching that match, or did you go back?
No, we were. I remember we were in the hotel, and we heard and we knew the result, but that time it's 2001, and screaming was not like today and like this, and we didn't want, because it's like, okay, the opportunity to play Korea in the final, it's great, and then of course we have a bigger chance, but then maybe more pressure also. I mean, China, you have nothing to lose, and it's like nobody expects a miracle against China, so it was mixed feeling.
Great.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean. I'm done.
All right. Thank you, Danny, for those questions.
Great question. Thanks.
No, Danny's done his research, and no, I know that the point where he did commentary in Houston, I think I will agree with Danny that will go down as the most memorable match point in U.S. history without any question. And then I think it has a candidate to possibly go against all the other international ones. We have a lot of kids on our national team, and I think I speak for a lot of them and for their coaches. Can you describe how you set up your training? How much training time on the table? How much off the table? Did you do any type of mental training? Can you kind of share with the listeners how you, outside of tournaments, would prepare for competition?
Okay, it's difficult to because it's a long career, but I will pick up some momentum when I decided and I met my let's say my I don't like to say the doctor, because for me it was more like a physical trainer than the doctor. When I met him in I think after German Open in 90, when we played the Open tournament, as you remember, that time it was always like team competition, and then double, mixed, and single. We played all in 4 or 5 days, everything. Now it's only single, 1 match a day or 2 matches a day, so it's less demanding physically as it was before. So we won with Cabrera the team event in Germany in 90 in this German Open, and I reached the semi-final and I lost with Gatien, but then I was dead and no more power. And of course, I have a very demanding game. So I went to see this doctor, and I said to him, okay, one moment something is missing. I don't know if I eat good, if I drink good, if physically I'm, well prepared. Something is missing. I would like to improve. And then we started to work first on the food and the drink during the competition. Because at that time I was not well educated on the how to do things, and which kind of drink I should use, and how to eat properly, and not this croissant in the morning or pain au chocolat or whatever, to eat really properly. And then we went to work on the physical step, and he asked me how I was practicing. And I said, okay, in the hall we go, we warm up, and then I do my first exercise, footwork, 7 minutes, and then the other one, 7 minutes, then knee, 7 minutes, then the other one, 7 minutes, then service and receive, 7 minutes, and he said, do you change sometimes? I said, well, not so much. That time we did little bit many balls, but not so much as today. And then he said, okay, but if you practice all the time nearly the same, how you can improve your footwork or your physical capacity? And then because he studied at school the way how in university, not at school, in university, how the guys, they practice in athletics, he started to tell me that I should go running in the beginning of the season, long distance for 2-3 weeks, and then to go on the track and field and do some 800 meters, and then 400 meters, and then 200 meters, and then to go back on the table afterwards, and then to take this interval timing of 800 meters, 400, 200 to the footwork behind the table. So when I was practicing with my opponent, I give them a box of ball, and then I was doing my interval training on footwork. When I missed the ball, he just pick up a ball. When he missed the block, he just pick up, and I was doing many interval training on the footwork where I needed to improve myself. And there came Mr. Wong with his technical idea. And we were doing, of course, left, right, and then front and back, and diagonal and parallel, and of course step around and like this, all this kind of exercise, but much more on interval training to grow the capacity of my heart and my legs and my arm and my head. And after all this practice, my confidence was so strong because I really believed that I could improve my physical abilities. And to be honest, I always did a match after every practice. Doesn't matter how was the practice. It was just like, let's say, technical practice or multi-ball practice or interval practice. When I was really dead, I always did a match afterwards, because then I wanted to create some different situation. Because in the competition, okay, you never play when you are fit 100%, maybe once, and then next match you're a little bit more tired, and so on. So I wanted to create all the time some different situation, and to play matches like every day in different circumstances, and it helps me, you know, to find the best way and to try to search the way to try to win that match, and it helps me in the competition a lot.
And it almost appears like you're doing sports psychology visualization, but in real time, that you're actually putting yourself in a situation where the tougher the practice, the more valuable the match after the practice, because you're dealing with being tired, or, boy, you just really had a hard workout, but then you still now get to fight as if you're in a fifth game in the old days, right? Games to 21, that you'd have to pull that, go dig deeper.
Yeah, it's funny because when people ask me, did you work with a mental trainer or like this, or psychologist? I don't like the word psychologist. I prefer mental, you know, mental trainer. It sounds better for an athlete. Psychologist, it's like, you know, you may have some trouble, right? So I think the wording, it's not good for us. Mental preparator, I like more this. But when I was really, let's say, younger and in the top of my career, I always refused to work with that kind of person, because I was like afraid that they will disturb my head, because I really believe in my head. And I said, okay, I will not go to see somebody 2 to 3 Wednesday afternoon, and he has no idea about table tennis, and suddenly he will tell me how I have to play at 19 hole. You know, for me, it was not in my vision. But then during my career, and when I get older, I went to some conferences. I discussed with some people in the National Olympic Committee, and then finally, as you said, I realized that I did it all the time by my own, by discussion with the physio, with the doctor, and trying to find the situation during the matches in the practice. So I did it kind of naturally. And when I went to one, let's say, colloque when I was, let's say, 35, the guy, I could understand or realize that I was doing this all the time in my career. It was just, I didn't know, you know, it was in my, let's say, in my cast there with all the things, but I did it without saying, okay, this I work, and this I work, and this I work. I did it like naturally.
Yeah, it's funny because a couple of people asked me, I've worked with a number of very strong Chinese coaches, and in Beijing one summer, I think it was around 87, Wong was in Beijing, and he was helping our team play, and I had to make a 9 o'clock flight in the morning. So that meant the team had to leave for the airport around 7. And he was such a wonderful coach to work with. I asked him if he wouldn't mind doing a final multi-ball session at 5:30 a.m. And he said, for you, Sean, I'll do anything. And I knew him when he was coaching in Ecuador with the players. And I don't know who was the luckiest player to have him by their side, because his personality, his ease and relax, while at the same time thinking so precisely on what is necessary tactically. Any additional thoughts on Coach Wong that really meant a lot to you?
I always say that Mr. Wong was like a second father for me. We are still in contact. He still lives in Belgium. So I had him on the phone a few days ago. He's really locked down, but he's okay. No, I have to say that I'm really, as you said, really lucky to have him. and I'm really proud that we were working together more than 20 years, you know, from 1890 to till 2009, when it was, you know, starting to be maybe a little bit more difficult for him to continue to travel all over the world and so on. It's fantastic that we stayed so long together in the good moments, and of course in the sometimes in the sad time, because of course in one career there is some up and some downs. But indeed, his mental, it's cool, I would say, his Zen attitude helped me really, really a lot, because I never felt with him an extra pressure. You know, some coaches, they are fantastic trainers, but coaching is different. You know, you feel that they are stressed when they speak, you know, their voice is like this. When they put, you know, the number, then they go like this, and then you feel the extra pressure. Mr. Wong, never at all. And he always find the right wording, or even maybe not the right wording, because he's French and his English were, you know, but we understood each other very well. But the attitude was always like, okay, it doesn't matter, it's not important, but feel free. If you don't go for it, then you lose the chance. But, you know, always the right thing to say, and that it's like the pressure disappears, and then, okay, go for it and try your best. And anyway, you will not die because you lose, so just fight and go.
No, I think the way you describe it, actually, a lot of the very best sports psychologists have that same personality, where they leave it up to the athlete to use their self-motivation to push themselves, because that's generally enough. And you don't want to get in the way of the athlete by giving them extra useless information, or, as you said, making them feel stress that's coming from the coach. You never want to give them that extra. I'm going to toss it over to Yasna. I think she might have a question or two.
Hey, Jean-Mi.
Hi, Yasna. How are you? Okay?
I'm good. So maybe for our young athletes here in US, so there are centers in US where they have really good training, but then there's places where they don't have so many strong players to practice with. You grew up in early career, when you grew up, you didn't have really so many players in Belgium at the time and opportunities. Maybe if you can tell us, how did you practice? Where did you practice at those years of your development?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, when I was 13, I was already in the national team, and I was already number 4 in Belgium. So 14, number 2, and 15 Belgium champion. So if I wanted to continue to grow up in the world ranking by being already the national champion by 15 years old, okay, Belgium was suddenly like too small for me. So when I was 13 years old, I went to Germany to play in the Bundesliga, in second Bundesliga. Because it was the best solution for me to continue to improve. And I was number 4 in Belgium, and the first 2, like Cabrera and the Prophétis, that time they were playing already in France. So I had 90% of victory in Belgium in the first league. So I said, okay, if I want to improve internationally, I have to go out. And I went to Germany. I had only the first year 50% of victory in second Bundesliga, but this was the best way for me to go there and to have the practice with the first team also, because the target was to become European champion cadet, and I did it, and I won after the first year. So, of course, this is in the middle of Europe. It's a little bit easier to go in another country than in the middle of United States, but I mean, it was the only way to, if I wanted to improve, to go out. And when Stenzel arrived, we have the national practice, but then we always tried. And also when he left afterwards, I always tried to go outside to practice in different clubs or national center, like in Paris, or with the French team, or in Düsseldorf in the club, in Oxenhausen in Germany, in Grenzow, sometimes in Sweden as well, because I wanted to find always better player, better opponent. And especially at that time, today it's less the case, but especially at that time, to find a different type of player, you know, pen holders, pimples, you need to find the Chinese, choppers. We had no lefty in Belgium, so I need to find this lefty with normal game, lefty with pimples like Wong, not so easy to find. Yeah, pen holder, choppers. So the only chance for me was to go outside. And I remember some years I was like, Monday to Friday in Germany, in the weekend home, Monday to Friday in Germany, and then competition all the time like this, because I wanted to have the best, that they pushed me to try to improve my game and myself.
Okay, thank you. Also about education, if you can tell young athletes, is it important at the same time to work on your education? Do you need to think about what you're gonna do after the career? How did you handle that?
Of course, it's a long time ago, so many things has developed in the meantime in Europe, and now the guys, they have more possibilities to combine things as before, and I think it's great and it's good. I think we have been pushing, I think, in different countries and via the athletes commission on different level and like this, to try to improve that way. For my side, I realized early that if I could compare the number of hours that the Germans or the French had compared to what I had in Belgium, so I said, okay, when I will finish my college at 18, I will take 2 years to play and to practice only table tennis, to have like 2 practice a day, because before was only 2 hours a day because of school till 4 or 5 o'clock every day. So it was difficult. So I did my military service. It was an obligation that time for 1 year, but then I qualified for Seoul Olympic Games. So I could really practice. I go abroad to practice with the best players, so they gave me some permission, and then I took 1 more year, and in the meantime I was in the top 20, 15 in the world, so I didn't go back to any education until I was 35 or even 40, when I realized that I wanted, to study more things on computer and like this, and try to find some kind of education which could be useful for me, because I have my own company management, and they could be concretely useful. And in the meantime, many things improve, so I could have some special teacher, and then I continue to go with the languages. Now I study and I continue to study Dutch, because we are speaking, in fact, 3 languages in Belgium: French and Dutch and little bit German. And so I continue to do this now, and I think it's very important to combine and to take the time to also practice and also study, because even if my career was extremely long, normally it's not that long, and you need to have some things for the next 25, 30 years after your sports career.
Thank you. And the last question from me. Can you tell us, what do you do now? In what things you are involved? In what kind of organizations?
Okay, I'm in the Belgium NOC, so the Belgium Olympic Committee. I'm the vice president now for 3 years. I'm also president of Urban Youth Games. This is an association who tries to educate kids to play some different sports, and this is mostly in Brussels, in the site of the capital, and we try to give the opportunity of the kids to practice sports together, coming from different education, different culture, and to mix them together. So today, with the things with the racism, it's, I think, very, very important to bring people together. So this I'm doing. I'm also liaison with the IOC Athletes Commission, between the IOC Athletes Commission and the European Olympic Athletes Commission. I'm member of the Athletes Entourage Commission in the IOC as well, and in the ITTF Athletes Commission too. So this is what I'm doing, and I still have a contract with 4 different companies where I do public relation things and conference in companies. So I have a, let's say, busy agenda, but also not one fixed place. So I can choose myself where I give more time, and so it's interesting.
Thank you, Jean-Mi.
Thanks so much. The next question, Jean-Mi, is going to come from Virginia Sung, who, like yourself, athlete on the national team wanting to give back to the sport. We know that you ran for the ITTF presidentship. I wanted you to win so badly. But Virginia has a question for you also.
You should have voted for USA.
Hi, Jamie. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Yes, I'm good. So are you going to run again?
This was the question. Okay.
No, I'm just joking. My question is, what is your vision for the sport of table tennis on the world level?
Wow. Okay. This I have to prepare another manifesto like I did 3 years ago with 11 points. I think actually I'm proud of what I did 3 years ago. I think the campaign I did a really good campaign coming from let's say not from the administrative part, not inside the EC, and I mean I moved a little bit them, and yeah, I was really close to win. Of course, inside the ITTF, my time were a little bit, how to say, to be nice, little bit difficult in the last 3 years. They tried a little bit to put me, let's say, on the side, but it's probably part of the game. Even if I was always open to work with that team after I lost, but okay, it's like this anyway. So yeah, it's a good question. Now we are talking a lot about this WTT. They asked me in the German magazine to make a column. I did last week, and I always say that it's always interesting to have people outside table tennis to give their outside vision, because we are, let's say, from the past, always good between us, but we cannot properly sell table tennis outside our world. And this is what is missing, even if table tennis, or I would say ping pong, is so popular all over the world. So it's crazy, amazing, or sad that table tennis is so popular among the people, and that our sport, I would say the professional side, it's not that big, I would say, like tennis or golf or soccer or whatever. So there we have to work better. Now, as I understand how will be the WTT, it's a lot of individual competition, not so much from our side as a European, counting with the clubs. And the clubs, they are the first, who paid and give salary to the players. I mean, today, if you want to be really honest, how many players earn their money on the circuit? I don't know, 10, 20 players. So if we want to follow golf and tennis, I don't know how long it will take and how much money they will have to spend and to give to the players to reach that maybe 200 players can be professional only by playing on the circuit. So they should need to have a discussion with the Europeans, not because I'm European, because this is there where the clubs is the stronger league, and the stronger league, most of the players, they go there to play Americans, Asians, Africans, South American, because this is the strong league, and this is where apart from the Asian, where the guy can practice and improve from themselves. Now it seems that something is missing. If you kill the clubs and you have only the circuit where the guy will practice, there is no ITTF center. So, I mean, without the clubs, the journey is long before the circuit. So they should focus on that and consider that as well. I like changes, but not so much changes. I said in my manifesto 3 years ago, and I don't like the idea that, for example, World Championships would disappear. I mean, we need to be proud of our history, what happened in our history, and this is how and why we are here today, and we should consider that as well. But to answer your question, I think I need much a longer time, because of course there is a lot to say, a lot to sing, and but we have to continue to improve the situation of ITTF in the world.
Great, thank you. I think we are all part of this table tennis world. We wanted to see the sport grow, as big as tennis or golf. So everyone's playing their part here. And thank you so much for joining us.
And I'm going to reiterate what Virginia said before I send you over to Mark. It's just been a real thrill to have you come and join us at USA Table Tennis and share some of the moments, especially having a chance to have Danny ask you some really great questions, along with Jasna getting a nice perspective about what it's like being a pro athlete. And then, as I said, I think that you were so fortunate to have what I consider one of the top coaches of all time. So I'm going to toss it over to Mark for final remarks.
Thank you very much, Sean, and thank you, Danny, for the questions that you had. They were well prepared and well placed. And Jasna, as always, right on point, and Virginia as well. Jean-Michel, I want to thank you very much for spending time with us. You know, I find it a little bit ironic that you broke your wrist there riding a bike, because the first time, I don't come from table tennis, but the first time I heard of a Belgian athlete was a bike rider. It was Eddie Merckx back in the day, or the great Tour de France rider who was even known in, I was in Tennessee at the time. Kids in Tennessee knew about Eddie Merckx. So you're following in good footsteps, I suppose, there. I think you were the 26 years in a row as the #1 player in Belgium. Yeah, in Belgium. You had to be very proud of your experience there in the country. I wanted to ask you in the closing about the 2 times that you were the flag bearer at the Olympics for the country of Belgium, including at the '96 Olympic Games, and what in Atlanta, what that felt like to walk into that stadium carrying the flag for your home country.
Well, it's just crazy, amazing. It's such an honor, you know. When you're a small kid, this is the first thing you see: the opening ceremony, and then the parade with all the countries and with the flag bearer and with the name under, you know. So it's such an honor to be the flag bearer. Of course, it was like a dream for me to have this opportunity, and I was, you know, really hoping before '96, because I was #1 in the world ranking 94, 95, and then again in March '96. So and I've been also twice Sportsman of the Year. So I knew that I was one of the candidates and maybe the favorite. So I was hoping for that. And when they told me, this was on the plane to go to Atlanta, that they announced me that. So it was like 2 weeks before the game, because I went there to practice a little bit before. So it was such a great honor. And then, okay, when you do this, you have, you know that all the camera of the world are on your side, even if it's on, you know, on your face, on your food, on your country, for a few seconds. But you know, in Atlanta, we were not starting from the track and field. We were coming from the stairs, up and down. So I was afraid to fall down. I said, this is not the momentum to fall down from the stairs that time. So it was just a great honor. And in 2004, honestly, I was at home. And because I did the opening ceremony 88, 92, 96. And when you do the opening ceremony, you don't see anything. You know, you are in the stadium next to it. If you are lucky, there is some screen where you can follow, but you don't see anything. So in Sydney, I didn't want to go. I stayed in the village and I watched it. And in 2004, the table tennis was like in the second part of the game. And I said, okay, I will stay home. I will go in the last momentum, not to lose so much energy in the village, and just to focus, maybe to come 2 days before, it will be enough, like in normal competition. But then it was Justine and I, our tennis player, who was supposed to be the flag bearer in Athens, and she had her competition the next day. So with the recommendation, they say, okay, it's long, you will come back at night, maybe 2 o'clock in the night in the bed, so better you don't do it. And then just the day before the opening ceremony, they called me and they said, are you agree to be the flag bearer? And I said, is it a joke or not? No, they say, no, Justine will not do it. If you agree, if we find a place on the plane tomorrow morning, you take the plane and you will be the flag bearer. So for me, it was an unbelievable surprise. This was my 5th game, so unbelievable honor, totally unexpected. So I always say this was my biggest moment, because unfortunately this is the only competition where I didn't get the medal. So I have to take something else, and this is the honor of being flag bearer twice. This is my biggest momentum in the games.
Well, Jean-Michel Saive, it's been our honor to have you here today. Thank you very much for being a part of the Ask the Champ interview series. It's been a real pleasure to have you here with USATT, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure to to chat with you, to answer your question, your different questions, different type of question, different style. So a lot of pleasure. Thanks a lot. Really enjoyed.
Have a great day.
See you soon.
Thank you.